So
Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us. We will get started in just a few minutes as people are streaming in. So please be patient. If for whatever reason you have a problem with Zoom, and I don't know why you would, but if you do, we're also recording this on Facebook Live on Peace Action's Facebook page. So you can go over there if you need to. Appreciate to see people from far and wide are joining us today. And we're hoping to be relatively efficient with our time. I think we'll be able to do this in less than an hour. One little quick commercial. If you already get action alerts from Peace Action, that's great. If not, you can go to our website to sign up. Also, I send out updates usually a couple times a week, and I'm putting my email in the chat if people want to get those updates from me. Okay. We are welcoming folks in. We're over 200 already. We really appreciate that. And again, if you have a problem, you need to switch over to our Facebook Live broadcast, you can do that. You can also share that with people who maybe missed it today. In terms of the order of speaking, we may actually have to change that because we may have had a curveball in terms of our speakers. But let me go ahead and get started. I'm Kevin Martin. I'm the president of Peace Action and Peace Action Education Fund. And I'm coming to you from just outside the occupied capital city of Washington, D.C., where people are putting up quite a resistance to Trump's takeover of the Metropolitan Police in Washington. So what we're doing tonight, and it's beyond just Peace Action and Peace Action Education Fund, a lot of good folks around the country that we work with in one form or another from various organizations, including our Ceasefire Now grassroots network. And that's where a lot of you have come from as well. If you don't get those updates, feel free to send me an email, which I put in the chat. Also, if you subscribe to Peace Action's alerts, you'll get a lot of what we send out. So our guest speaker tonight is U.S. Representative Delia Ramirez from Chicago, the 3rd Illinois District. And we had her on and we don't know.
I am on. I'm on.
There she is.
I'm literally outside of the Capitol steps.
And that's a lovely picture. Representative Ramirez, we're so pleased to have her with us tonight, representing the 3rd District of Illinois. And as I was looking a little bit into her bio, what impressed me as a former resident of Chicago, I lived in Chicago for 10 years, before joining the House of Representatives, and before that in the Illinois State House, Delia Ramirez was a grassroots community organizer in some of the coolest neighborhoods on the west side of Chicago. And she represents a wonderful polyglot of a district in the west side of Chicago and also the suburbs. And we are so pleased with her leadership in introducing the Block the Bombs to Israel bill, HR 3565. And I know she was just on the floor because I was watching and they were doing House votes. So we really appreciate her making time to join us tonight. Thank you so much, Representative Ramirez. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate everyone jumping on tonight. at a time where we know there's just so much happening. And also a reminder of why we have to continue to organize with each other. I just got off the House floor, as you heard, and the speaker that was presiding is someone that has called to the death Palestinian children and even members of Congress like me. And so you and I both know that there's so much happening in this moment and why it's so critical is that we're organizing together. So I just want to thank you. As you know, I am the member of Congress that has introduced Block the Bombs bill. We've built a lot of momentum around it. But I think more important for people to know is that we are building more and more support around it because what is happening in Palestine, what is happening in Gaza is indefensible. And so tonight I'd be happy to answer questions. I'd be happy to talk to you about how this bill that's not a resolution really is getting to tangible action. Because anyone that says that what they see and seeing starving children get bombed is unacceptable needs to jump on this bill if they really want to take action. So I'm happy to answer questions, but I want to also say to you that as I think about this moment, we have a fascist president, Trump, and we have a fascist leading Israel. They are an extremist, lethal, unaccountable duo. And that is why this bill that demands congressional oversight, withholds offensive weapons from Israel, is the very first step in really taking accountability in this precise moment. So I just want to thank you all because you and I both know there is no way we bomb ourselves to peace. It only creates more death and destruction. And it is why we need members of Congress and you on the outside organizing for moments such as this.
Excuse me, was I muted? Sorry about that. I believe that we're up to 47 co-sponsors in the House. I didn't check today, but that's really
We have
impressive.
We do. We have 47 sponsors. We picked up 2 in the last few days. We introduced the bill with 22 members of Congress. And so the work that you all have been doing, the advocacy, the constant organizing is really paying off. We are hoping that as of tomorrow, as we have more conversations, even within the Congressional Progressive Caucus, that we can pick up more members of Congress to really take tangible action in this moment.
So far, it's all Democrats, and we had several people asking, what do we think the chances are, or what are the best strategies or arguments to try to get any Republicans on this? And I know it's something you and your staff are working on, but is there any advice you have to constituent supporters who don't have the privilege of being represented by you and have to
Yeah.
deal with Republican members of the House?
I mean, look, if you're trying to use Republican language, which I never use, but they often attempt to talk about America first. Well, it's really hard to say America first when you are sending billions of dollars to bomb children in another country. So I think it's important to ask the question, particularly for those, like Marjorie Taylor Greene or maybe Thomas Massey. Is there an opportunity for constituents within their own district to invite them to co-sponsor this bill? Because the statements are helpful, but more importantly, there's actual tangible action they could be taking. And joining this bill would be a perfect way for them to really demonstrate, you know, their frustration, uh, their concern with what's happening, and moving their words into action.
And I encourage those of you that have not read the bill, HR 3565, it's very clear and succinct. It bans 7 specific weapon systems to Israel, from tank rounds to bunker busting bombs to artillery, white phosphorus. It's really quite impressive. A question that came in, and this is something that a lot of us deal with, what is your position or your understanding of why the United States is allowed to even transfer weapons to Israel, given Israel is violating the Leahy Law and also the Foreign Assistance Act and other parts of U.S. and international law? Because ideally, your bill shouldn't even be necessary, because Israel shouldn't be eligible to receive these. Do you have a position on that?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, let me just start by saying to you that there is so much legislation that we're introducing that we shouldn't have to introduce, because the Constitution already has demonstrated and affirmed what is law, what isn't. I'm not just lead sponsor of Block the Bombs bill, I'm also the lead sponsor of Born in the USA Act, a bill that states clearly that if you're born in this country, you're a United States citizen, period. And that the president cannot use any congressional funds to execute an executive order to revoke people's citizenship status. The 14th Amendment already makes it into law. It is so unfortunate that in this moment, we have to actually introduce legislation that would codify further what we already know is law. But for example, right now, as it pertains to the to 1 second, my AirPods, folks, I really appreciate your patience because I know that people think there's luxury in this job, but we're constantly running, especially those of us that really work hard. So I am in between places as we speak. So I really appreciate your patience here. But let me just come back to, you asked the question about why the Leahy law is not being followed. Because we have a fascist president, but also previously, I would say to you that administrations have always relied on Israel's self-reports and investigations to make determinations if they are abiding by international law. You and I know that you cannot trust and believe anything that this prime minister and his cabinet is saying. We have seen that these offensive weapons that are violating international law are killing children and innocent civilians every day. And yet what we say is, well, we've checked with Israel. They disagree with that notion. So that's why I think it's so important. And look, non-governmental organizations, including several prominent Israel human rights organizations, have actually documented the violations and the violation of Leahy law, right? And that's why this bill is so important. I mean, we have the joint resolutions. We have a number of resolutions in this moment. We should support all of them. And this bill is a very first concrete step to withhold weapons from Israel. And we have to do everything we can to get it into committee, which is Armed Services jurisdiction. And our colleague Sarah Jacobs is in that committee to begin debating it and to force a vote on the House floor.
Great. And I'm going to talk a little bit in a minute about efforts on the Senate side. And I know you are working to get a companion bill on the Senate side. If you have time for one more, and I really appreciate your being mobile here, for a lot of us, the frustration of what's going on every day and then how slow our political process grinds on is very difficult. But that's why Block the Bombs is so important, because the leverage that the United States has is the weapons that we send to Israel. And if we stop, they could not continue this. However, we had a few questions about beyond Block the Bombs or stopping weapons to Israel. Do you think there is growing support in Congress for a sustainable ceasefire to end this genocide, to end this horror?
I do think that there is growing support. I've seen a number of my colleagues who have not signed on to the bill call for a ceasefire, who have called for aid to come in. But you and I both know, even when we had a so-called ceasefire, people were still being killed. Settlers were still killing people in the West Bank. I mean, it has not stopped, which is why, to me, I think the bigger question is, what do we have to do to, one, hold Trump and Bibi Netanyahu truly accountable in this moment? Like, you and I both know more than 70% of voters are saying over and over what they are seeing happening in Gaza, in the West Bank, in the entire region is indefensible. They don't understand how Democrats or Republicans can justify it. And moreover, they don't understand how their taxpayer dollars that they can't control how we use are being used to kill children. It is, in my opinion, truly a genocide. And we have to call it what it is. And we need more members of Congress to, in this moment, if they are going to seek thinking about these children who are being bombed as they are in line for food, if they don't want to see thousands more starve to death or die over the next few days, as Bibi Netanyahu is talking about absolutely taking over, expanding the settlements in the West Bank or taking over Gaza and continuing to level it, they could do something. And that is actually jumping on this bill. And I think for those that people would not assume that would be on this bill, it's really powerful testimony when they join the bill, followed with a statement of why they're supporting it. And I did a briefing just last week with members who had just joined the bill. And I said to them, thank you for joining. Now go get 5 more people to join.
Awesome.
That's the
Thank you.
organizing part, Kevin.
Exactly. Thank you so much. And one of the things that I think is really important for us as advocates to think about is a lot of this has to do with how horrible Israel's actions have been. but public opinion has shifted. So in a way, you could say that we are doing our job, and now we're calling on Congress to do its job. The Gallup poll showed only 32% support for what Israel's doing in Gaza and only 8% among Democrats. I think that poll needs to be shoved in front of every Democratic
I
member
agree.
that we can, because we're doing our job. We need more people to do their jobs the way you are.
That's right, Kevin. And let me end by saying this. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Mexico with a progressive group of members of Congress and Parliament from 12 different countries. We talked about the impact that the US has had with many countries around the world, mostly negative, sometimes very few times, maybe the USAID, an example of that, more positive. But as I gave my speech, I decided to give a few words in Spanish. My parents are from Guatemala. They were born there. They're now Guatemalan American citizens here. And I was born in this country. I love the roots that I have from Chicago. And I'm Guatemalan and I'm American. I said a few words in Spanish. I talked about being proud of being Guatemalan and American. And then I was told, and I have members of Congress who said that I committed treason. These are the very same members of Congress who don't have a United States flag in front of their office, but they have an Israeli flag. These are the very same members of Congress who have said, when it comes to Israel, unconditional support under any and every circumstance. We stand for Israel and with Israel, even before the US. And yet they don't commit treason. So I just really want to call out the hypocrisy of this moment and also ask people, to what end are you willing to allow and justify or ignore and be silent in this moment? Because Bibi Netanyahu, when he attacked Qatar just recently, his ambassador said, oh, the US will get over it. They always get over it. This is the arrogance and attitude of this cabinet. And you and I both know that the safety and security of Israelis and Palestinians is intertwined, interconnected. And if you care about the Israeli people, these bombs have to stop immediately.
Well, thank you so much, Delia Ramirez. And I'm just glad they let you back into the country from Mexico. Although I love Mexico. If I were you, I might have been tempted to stay for a little bit. But you needed to
Too
come
much work
back
to do here. Yeah.
You had to come back and do your job, and really, really appreciate that. Please, everyone, give virtual applause and hearts to Representative Delia Ramirez. And you may see her in another Peace Action event down the road. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to shift gears now, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the nitty-gritty of the advocacy and mobilizing that's going on. And our next speaker is Iman Abid Thompson, who has been such a leader on these issues for a long time from the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. Full disclosure, I'm a longtime advisory board member of USCPR, but I don't give them any advice because they don't need any advice from me, because they do such a great job of organizing at the national level, grassroots level, advocacy and BDS and all kinds of stuff. And if you don't get their alerts or haven't been on their webpage, they have fabulous tools for organizing on the issue. And so I asked Iman to be with us for a little bit tonight just to talk about some of the work that USCPR has been doing and the really impressive organizing and mobilizing around Block the Bombs. Iman, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Kevin. And I just have to shout out Representative Delia Ramirez. I don't know where we would be without her. Her just unconditional support for the people of Palestine, and like the love and the commitment to it, and taking real, like not just making statements, but taking real tangible action to make this happen. I think, again, as she stated, and as Kevin, you also reflected upon, is that we have 47 co-sponsors on this bill. That's not a small number in relationship to an issue of Palestine. I think many folks here understand it's a really high number. And I think it's something that we need to really reflect on, because it didn't just happen simply because people started to care. It's because of the activated, sustained pressure that you have each put onto your member of Congress that has got us to this position. And let's also not dismiss the fact that we're almost nearing 2 years. Almost 2 years, in less than a month. We are less than a month away from 2 years of genocide in Gaza. The fact is that we have raised a high number of escalation on these members of Congress, and we've done a really good job at starting to shame them and understanding just where they will be remembered when it comes to their moment in history and taking a look back at this point in time. It hasn't dawned on me on the fact that there was a report recently released. As we all know, we've all been trying to gauge just exactly what level of destruction has been happening on the ground. Even as a Palestinian myself, even as people I've been talking to people in Gaza directly, of course, we can't really understand the magnitude of the destruction. And I think many folks probably saw the number 680,000 Palestinians has been floating around recently. That's over a quarter of a million people who have likely died if that number is accurate. That's a quarter of a million, it's a quarter of 2 million people, the entire population of Gaza. That is a number that is absolutely baffling, and it just sits in your stomach and just creates such a pit in our bodies and our souls. And it's something that I know many of you are extremely moved by. And you didn't need to know a number in order to take the act or make the decisions that you've made to put pressure on your member of Congress. And so I'm just reflecting on the fact that, again, these numbers and more testimonies have kind of just shown us just how awful it is around what has actually been happening. And then I also want to emphasize the fact that we're in a position right now where people have been pushed left and right and literally have nowhere to go. They have nowhere to go. With the amount of movement, forced displacement that has been committed by the Israeli occupation forces and the Netanyahu government, we are now in a position where we are starting to see that Palestinians literally have nowhere to go. Nowhere. And I think that's something that we really need to amplify to our members of Congress, left and right, and help them understand that if they haven't signed on to stop the transfer of weapons that have only been used to protect the Israeli government, then they will be remembered as the genocide enablers when it comes time to remembering this moment in history. I don't want to dismiss the fact that it is very traditional tactics, and the tactics that many of you have probably used in the past that have been used in this moment right now. And that's directly, for instance, meeting with your member of Congress, calling or emailing your member of Congress, showing up and demonstrating in front of your member of Congress's office if they haven't chosen to call it a genocide, if they haven't chosen to sign on to block the bombs. That has really actually created the pressure that we need to get people on and sign on as co-sponsors to this bill. It is the constant agitation, the constant escalation on these members of Congress that has actually gotten us to a position of saying that we can now have 47 co-sponsors and counting. There are probably going to be even more co-sponsors in the next couple of hours, in the next couple of days, who will sign on to this bill because of that escalated agitation that each of you has taken part in. We have been hosting a series of power hours virtually for those who can't necessarily go to their member of Congress. We have met for about every week. We've been meeting for an hour and just getting people on the line and getting them to call their offices, email their offices, and doing everything they possibly can. And people are so equipped with information. It's amazing to see just how much people know. But it is that type of information that you're sharing out with your member of Congress that's actually pushing them and getting them to sign on. And so I want to emphasize just the importance of digital action, but also on the ground action. Again, showing up to your member of Congress's office, bird dogging them. That's something that I don't want to dismiss. Showing up and interrupting their dinners is actually something that people are not. No member of Congress wants that. Nobody wants to be disrupted in their private time. But because they haven't chosen to give Palestinians a peace of mind and to take the position that they need to take on the Block the Bombs bill, we know that we have to go after and make sure that we do everything we can to ensure that they understand what's actually happening. And so I think that there's just an emphasis on the multitude of tactics that's really important for us to use. And so if you are making those calls and emails, don't stop there. Show up to your member of Congress's office and demand that they meet with you, especially if they haven't signed on to Block the Bombs. This is a first of a kind legislative vehicle that we have in front of us in the middle of this genocide that can actually stop offensive weapons from being sent. It is not an end-all be-all, but it is definitely going to actually shape the conversation in a way that forces people to be held on record for Palestine. And so again, we're about to enter into the election season. So there's a lot of information that we can hold and ensure that people understand that this is an issue that matters to them. This is an issue that you'll hold true in mind as we enter into the next year. And this is something that you won't let go of until they sign on to this bill. And even then, we'll be taking the next step to make sure they do everything we can to end U.S. military funding to Israel. So I just wanted to emphasize just again the traditional tactics that have been used so well by so many of you here. I don't want to underestimate the power of those sorts of things. We have toolkits. It's called the Stop Gaza Genocide Toolkit that actually allows you to kind of just read through and see the different ways in which you can engage with your member of Congress. You can look up all the different resources that exist. There's a number of action tools that are listed out in the toolkit itself. Feel free to take a look at it. You can find it on our Instagram. You can find it at uscpraction.org, but please take the time to look at it. And you can also we have a Congress scorecard that's on our USCPR Action website that actually provides you the track record on where members of Congress are on Palestine. And so I highly encourage you to check it out just so you know where historically people have been and where they are now, especially if they have or haven't signed on to block the bombs. And so I'll post that link in the chat, but I appreciate you all. Thank you, Kevin, for the invitation, and really hope to see you all out in the streets continuing to put pressure on our members.
Thank you, Iman. And I really appreciate what you're saying about multiplicity of tactics. So, and for those of you that are asking in the chat, you should definitely go to USCPR's website, but also it's linked on our Peace Action Block the Bombs page too, which I put in almost every email that I send out. So one of the things that we did over the summer is we had a bird dogging training for people to show up at town halls. And we can't take credit for this particular one, but one of the most powerful was people in St. Louis showed up at Wesley Bell, Representative Wesley Bell's town hall, and gave him what for? Because he was funded by AIPAC $12 million to defeat Cori Bush, who we had supported and had been the author of the first and I think only ceasefire resolution. And so AIPAC targeted her and they recruited this guy, Wesley Bell. And you know, he heard what for from his constituents. They're like, hey, you're supposed to be representing us, not AIPAC, not the Israeli government. And that is exactly the kind of thing that we need to do. So there's a lot of resources that a lot of organizations put out. If you want to see how your member of Congress may be doing in terms of AIPAC and associated funding, there's a great webpage called Track AIPAC. There's also a consortium of groups, including USCPR and Peace Action, called Reject AIPAC. You can get a lot of information there. And Peace Action, for our part, we'll be doing more events upcoming with candidates that we support. We call Meet the Candidates. And we may well have Delia Ramirez as one of those because she could well be targeted by AIPAC to defeat her in her re-election bid in Congress. So Iman, thank you so much. And thank you for all the great work that USCPR does and your stalwart leadership. We really appreciate it. So I'm going to spend just a few quick minutes talking about the Senate side. Now, we don't have a Block the Bombs bill in the Senate yet, but the House and the Senate are often on very different tracks. And then when I'm done, we're going to wrap it up with something that'll tie the House and Senate activity together. So in the Senate, we do have expedited procedures or privileged resolutions that can make it to the floor, whereas in the House, it's much more difficult. So we don't know if or when the Block the Bombs bill in the House will actually come up for a vote. Certainly, they're going to keep pushing for that, but the Republican majority can bottle it up pretty much indefinitely. On the Senate side, we have had joint resolutions of disapproval, 3 rounds of votes going back to last November, then April and July. And the one in July, we got the best outcome, the best vote we have gotten in the Senate. We got 27 votes, and Senator Slotkin from Michigan said she would have voted for it if she had been there. But that was a majority of the Democratic caucus. We've never had that before. Now, again, this seems grindingly slow given the horrors that are going on every day in Gaza. I do think, though, that we can have a long-term impact and are having a long-term impact on changing public opinion and changing governmental policy. So going forward, we expect there will be more joint resolution of disapproval votes. And if you sign up for Peace Action or USCPR or any of the other good groups working on this, you'll get alerts. We often don't know much ahead of time, and it's been Bernie Sanders from Vermont that has put forward those joint resolutions of disapproval on specific weapons transfers to Israel. However, we are pushing for other action in the Senate. We could have a war powers resolution. We could have a resolution under Section 502B of the Foreign Assistance Act. There are many things. We could do a whole webinar on ways that existing law is already being violated in terms of U.S. weapons transfers to Israel. But those are several that we could do. We also, and Representative Ramirez is working on this herself directly, working out to senators to get a Senate version of Block the Bombs introduced in the Senate. And it's possible, and none of these are an easy lift, but it's possible that that could be attached as an amendment to a funding bill. Now, right now, Congress, being dysfunctional as it usually is, will need to pass some kind of bill to keep the government open past the end of September. We'll see how that goes, but that would be an opportunity, and there could be others where we are able to attach a block the bombs type legislation. So I was going to do a one pager on these different options, but I think it's a little arcane for some people. I've been presenting this with a lot of meetings with Senate staff. I've been in 5 meetings with Senate staff along with other folks, and I know others have been approaching. It's at least a dozen senators now that we've been approaching to do something akin to block the bombs, even if it's not the exact same legislation. And I actually have an op-ed that I think will be published this week, and I will circulate that. And then I'll probably do a one-page memo that any of you can do with your senators. But I just wanted to give that brief overview. And now to sort of tie it together, our last presenter, and I'm really pleased to have Vinna McDermott from Connecticut, from the Muslim-led organization, Muslim Advocacy for Rights, Unity, and Fairness. Did I get that right?
You did.
Right. Okay. I think it's a cool acronym. And Vinna and I worked on a meeting together that we did with Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut. And she's put together a really good calling script and guide that you can use both for your members of the House to get them to support Block the Bombs, and also for the 12 key senators that we are targeting. And she's going to share her screen and talk a little bit about the work they've been doing on the ground there in Connecticut, which again is relevant for national work, not just in Connecticut.
Thank you, Kevin. I am honored to be here. Can everybody see my screen? Yes. Okay, so as Kevin mentioned, I've been working on the Block the Bombs with Connecticut, and what we've been doing since November of 2023, we had started a phone bank along with 40 other states to call Congress on a daily basis for ceasefire, arms embargo, no more weapons to Israel. It's been going on since, almost 2 years now. And recently, we've been pushing for the Block the Bombs bill. So what I have done is share some information with everybody tonight on what you can use. Feel free to use all of this information. Switch up your, the scripts. They're just sample scripts. But we put out a script every day for our House representatives and for our senators with very specific actions. We learned early on that just calling up and saying, we want a ceasefire, we want an arms embargo, they were hearing that repetitively, but we needed to tie it to some kind of bills, hence like the JRDs and the other bills that were coming through the House of Representatives. And I don't want to go through every piece of it, but that's basically what I share every day in Connecticut. And this one is for the House of Representatives. You call up, don't be afraid to call. They're working for us, we're not working for them, so they need to listen to us. We did our job. I think it was Kevin that said that earlier. It's time for them to do their job. So call them up, introduce yourselves, let them know your city or your zip code, and then ask them to co-sponsor HR 3565, Block the Bombs. I put in here some very specific wording about the bombs and what if enacted, the bill would block the transfer of these specific articles. You could change this up if you need to or want to, but it's pretty specific, and some people really like to have a script in them so that if they get nervous, they have it available for them. I also have a Senate script now because we are pushing at least one of our senators. We do have Senator Murphy here in Connecticut, who was one of the signers of both of the JRDs that came out. So we are pushing him as a senator to introduce the Senate bill, either mirroring the HR 3565 from the House of Representatives. But as Kevin said, there's other ways that they could introduce this as well. they could introduce it under Section 502B of the Foreign Assistance Act or as a War Powers Resolution. So I did put a sample in there as well. And this is what I do for my people in Connecticut. I have everything there for them in our chats. These are our lovely senators, Blumenthal and Murphy. Our 5 district representatives, unfortunately, none of them have signed on yet. So we are calling every day to urge them to co-sponsor HR 3565. Oh, we're also sending a letter to Senator Murphy. I wanted to share a form that you guys could use if you want to go this route. Let me see if I can open it up and show you. Are you able to see this on your screen, the form? So this is a basic form that you guys can edit according to your state. It has sample of what you would want as a letter. And then actually, let me go to the actual one that we did for Connecticut, because that will show you everything. This is the form we did for Connecticut. People sign up as a resident if they would like to be an individual or an organizational signer, making sure that they're authorized to sign on behalf of an organization, etc. But within the form, we actually put the letter as well as scrolling down the actual people that have already signed. We have well over 160 people signing this already, all from the state of Connecticut. And this is something that I'm really urging everybody to do. If you have a phone bank, other advocacy groups that you are part of, if you want to use this, I have a sample that you guys can copy. Make sure you copy it. And do up your own forms so that we can get these out to your senators. We also have these 13 senators here. There may be more coming that we really, really want to push for a Senate bill, a sister bill for Block the Bombs. So we have Senator Murphy, Senator Markey, Elizabeth Warren, Angus King, Tim Kaine, Peter Welch, Bernie Sanders, Jeff Merkley, Dick Durbin, Jean Shaheen, Mazie Hirono, Brian Schatz, and Chris Van Hollen. Those are the targets that we have right now that we are hoping that everyone will join on a day of calls to our senators, to these specific senators, everybody, we're all going to call them, and urge them all to either do a sister bill to HR 3565 or one of the other forms they could possibly do. I did do a little Instagram post here that people can, if they would like, change it up a little bit for their own states. I will grant you access so that you can edit it if you want. If I think there's probably a way to share this out again, Kevin, with everybody. If they want to make their own forms, I would be glad to work with them to go through it. And even I would even, help to put the form together for you. That's what I have. I know I went through it very quickly, but it's all down. Going to be coming through the email if you haven't already received it. And I would be glad to talk with anybody that wants to try and do this for their own states. I highly encourage it for people to get on the phones and call, as well as, get on Instagram, get on X, get on TikTok, whatever you can get on, to tag these senators and these representatives, and make sure that they're co-sponsoring bills. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vinna. And as I said, I've been part of meetings with 5 Senate offices, and the one with Senator Murphy's staff that Vinna's group put together was really impressive to me. And that's true of a number of others. I could tell how much respect they had, especially for a Muslim-led organization in Connecticut. And I could also tell that it was an ongoing relationship. It wasn't just a one and done kind of thing, which, we're not going to make much progress if it is a one and done. So we did put Vinna's document in the chat several times. Also, several people have asked me to share it, and I have shared it with the proviso that people shouldn't edit it directly, make a copy and then do the editing for your state, whatever you would like to do. So there are a number of questions we're not going to be able to get to because it's just a lot. I did see, though, a question that I think is germane. Liz from the Peace Action staff asked about moves by Congress to try to help Gazans evacuate. And I am aware of a number of members of Congress that are trying to do that on an individual basis, which is difficult. But on the other hand, if you have a member of Congress who's willing to do that, contacting your member and asking, what they can do to help get people out if they possibly can. So as I mentioned, and I want to underscore what Vinna is saying, all those 13 senators, we need to be calling them this week. There's all kinds of activity going on around Block the Bombs. There's an event in New York at the UN. I'm going to send that information around. But again, I think the multiplicity of tactics that Iman was mentioning is very important in this time. Media, and of course, I think media work and advocacy should be combined. I know it's not a separate thing. You lobby Congress and then you try to get media coverage of it. There's some very good tactics about how to combine those, including when you send a meeting request to staff of members of Congress, you can actually CC reporters and say, hey, reporters have been interested in this, and we haven't gotten a response from you. Some folks in Maine did that, and they got a meeting pretty much right away with Susan Collins. Also, great work that was done on accountability for senators that voted wrong on the last joint resolutions of disapproval. They, I believe at least one or more of the authors of an op-ed that was in the Sacramento Bee calling out Senators Schiff and Padilla for voting wrong. The day after that was published, they sent it to Schiff's office and they got a meeting after Schiff had been stiffing them. So working, the advocacy angle as well as the media angle, as well as showing up in public whenever you can. So we're going to be sending out some follow-up resources about this multiplicity of tactics. I've got a few things on my plate that I'm going to be sending around in the next day or two. And so we really want to encourage people to be making these calls, do the outreach to your senators. We need more House sponsors, and we need something in the Senate. And again, we will have more votes on joint resolutions of disapproval, but we also would like something that is broader, such as Block the Bombs, whether that's a standalone bill or an amendment on funding, or could they bring it forward as a war powers resolution or resolution under Section 502B. We really need to be throwing as much spaghetti at the wall to see what we can do, again, to get Congress to do its job. I just want to close by thanking all of you for your support, and do whatever you can to sign up for various alerts, either Peace Action or others. Use Vinna's calling tool, that script. I think it's a really important tool that she put a lot of work into, and that's very effective in getting people mobilized to contact members of Congress. And again, as I said earlier, I think some of the organizing that we've been seeing is some of the best organizing I've seen in over 4 decades as an activist. And I think we are doing our jobs and the public is doing its job. The public often is pretty clear about what's right and wrong, and Congress needs to step up and do its job. That's never easy. And certainly Peace Action and other organizations have a lot of experience on congressional advocacy. It's never easy, but it's also never impossible. And we are making progress. And we can only do that in community by supporting each other, sharing resources, sharing success stories, sharing videos. I saw some cool videos. The video last night of the actress who won an Emmy and her expletive about ICE and then Free Palestine, that's going viral all over the place. So every little bit matters. Every little bit that we can all put our shoulders to the wheel together is really important. So please stay in touch. Let us know about your efforts. Let us know what resources you need, and we'll do our best to help you out as well as we can. So thanks all for joining us tonight. I wanted to keep this to 45 minutes. It looks like we're going to achieve that. The last word I guess I would say to everybody is peace, salam, shalom.